shop.
Welcome back to Washington Journal. For about the next 40 minutes, we're going to be talking about American political memorabilia. If you've got some at home, you might want to call in and ask our guests about that. Our guests are Joe Levine. Good morning. Thanks for coming in. President of the Presidential Coin and Antique Company right here in Alexandria, Virginia, I believe. And Robert Fratkin, who is the former national president of the American Political Items Collectors. And I understand the Washington chapter is holding a meeting today. A show all day in Gaithersburg, which for anybody who doesn't know around here is just north of the city in Maryland.
The Holiday Inn, Montgomery Village Circle.
$3 to get in. And it says here, among the things that you can do at this show is there are free appraisals of memorabilia. Bring us your political junk. It could be worth more than you think. Tell us a little bit about that. I know you brought in some things that we can look at here. And why don't I just show our viewers what we're talking about.
Vast range of values in political items. This is the Landon Knox item from 1936, which looks very nice, has a felt sunflower around it. It's worth less than $1 because it isn't the age that matters, it's the rarity, and these are extremely common. On the other hand, if you can come up with this button right here with James Cox and Franklin Roosevelt's picture on it, you may have upwards of $20,000. So it is worth looking at your stuff, it is your items, it is worth taking them. Give us a call or check our website, which I understand is going to be on the bottom at some point. And we can tell you how to go about getting your items appraised. We can tell you how to go about selling them if that's what you choose to do, or becoming a collector, which is a lot of fun and which you should do.
Joe Levine, how big is the market in political collectibles?
The market in political collectibles is rather large. You have several facets to that market. You've got the organized collector group, and they trade with each other and through meetings like the APIC meeting today and through auctions and so forth. And then you have a really much larger market, an unorganized market, because a lot of people don't know where to go to get their political items. So these people trade on eBay, they buy in flea markets and antique shops and so forth, but there are probably more people outside of the organized hobby than there are within the organized hobby.
Robert Fratkin, how many people are likely to show up at a show like the one today in Gaithersburg?
Well, they've sold 52 tables to about 35 collector dealers. They'll probably get 300 or 400 people. And some surprising stuff will come in. We have what's called a Seattle rule. If you bring something in and you want to have it sold and you're not a member, it is auctioned off to make sure that you get the absolute best price you could for it. And we've had people walk into shows, and we had people walk into a show in Anaheim who thought they might have $300 or $400 worth of stuff and walk out with $26,000. So
$26,000.
So it can happen.
Joe Levine, how much does the typical button go for, and how old does something have to be worth anything at all? I mean, is a Nixon button or a JFK button going to be worth some money?
I don't know what a typical button is, but you can get an awful lot of buttons for under $2. You could probably amass a collection of several thousand buttons without spending more than $2 on any one button.
So there are Kennedy items that are worth 50 cents, and there are Kennedy items that are worth $1,000. I mean, it's the rarity of an item, not the age, that makes a difference.
You can also get $125,000 if you've got the right button.
$125,000.
$125,000.
Which button would that be?
Robert?
This one right here.
Is this it? Really?
That's it right there.
So this is J.W. Davis and C.W. Bryan.
That's Charles Bryan, who was the brother of William Jennings Bryan, and that's John W. Davis.
These guys
running in 1924 in the Democratic ticket.
1920.
Now, that doesn't mean that Davis Bryan buttons in general are worth that, but a Davis Bryan button is certainly worth more than $1,000. Just happens that's a one and only. Any Cox Roosevelt button with their pictures on it is going to be, you're talking $20,000.
anybody has those at home, you can call in.
We'd like to hear from
Yes.
you.
Our first call for our guest comes from St. Paul, Minnesota. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a huge political campaign button collection that I started in 1948 when I was in high school, and I don't even know what to do with it anymore. I can't get anybody interested in it. I started out by simply going to campaign headquarters in the days when the buttons were free and picking them up. The one that I have that's the oldest is a William Jennings Bryan button that I picked up at a garage sale in just a box of old buttons for $5. And I don't know, I'd have any suggestions about how to get it organized and what to do with it. I have about 5 Xerox boxes of them.
Well, would you like to be a collector, or would you like to be a seller, or would you just sort of like to find out what they're all worth?
Well, I guess I'm in between. I first of all would like to begin to find out what they're all worth and get them organized and do some trading and that kind of thing.
Okay, Colin,
Well,
thanks. Let's get some advice for you here.
I really think that you should check our APIC website. I hope you have a website.
Yeah, there's.
All right, it is up there. Good. If you will contact the APIC website, you can get an application blank. You can join the APIC. It's $30 a year. You'll find out who the other members are in the St. Paul area. You'll also, if you want to find out more, why don't you give me a call at 800-336-0156 on Monday, and I'll get you in touch with a lot of different things and find out a little more about what you have, because can't do it right here.
Why don't you give that number one more time, and then we'll give the web address.
Okay, 800-336-0156. Ask for Mr. Fratkin.
And our next call for our guest comes from New York City. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I have, I've inherited a copy of Ulysses S. Grant's memoirs, and it's autographed by him. And how much, the book is, reasonably tattered shape, but how much would something like that be worth?
Joe, do you have anything?
Yeah, my best guess is that your copy of Grant's memoirs is not autographed. The signature on the frontispiece of that book is in the plate, and it appears on all of Grant's memoirs. And if your piece is battered, best guess is that it's not worth but $10 or
Yes,
so.
I was going to say.
I'm sorry I disconnected the caller. He could have said whether that signature looks real or part of the front piece.
There would have to be two signatures, really. The one that always appears, and then an actual autograph, if
Which would be at
that's
an odd angle to the picture, or
Right.
an odd angle to
Yep.
the frontispiece.
Let me just give our viewers and our listeners a tip about the URL if they want to go to the website here. And I think we've got it up on our computer here at C-SPAN. This is www.collectors.org/APIC. Will that get people to the APIC
That'll
website?
get there, and they can get an application. They can go bopping around and find out all sorts of information about us and about our meetings.
Among other things, they can find out when the next shows are. There's a show today in Austin, Texas. There's one, of course, here in Gaithersburg in the Washington metropolitan area. Next, I guess in a couple of weeks, there's a show in Washington State in Seattle. There's another one April 2nd in Wisconsin, and they seem to be a fairly frequent.
We have them all over the United States in most major areas.
Is that caller from St. Paul going to be able to go to a show anytime soon? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know when the next show is in that area, but they do have, Minnesota APIC does have shows.
Our next call from Julian, California. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen, and my name is Diane Newman-Gregerson. I have a question for Mr. Fratkin.
Yes.
Mr. Fratkin, I have numerous pictures of President Clinton, ones that I've taken, and then also at numerous of his rallies prior to his being elected in 1992. I also have a photograph that he sent that was taken in the White House. It's a color photo. He engraved my name. I'm in the newspaper with him, the Los Angeles Times. I'm clairvoyant. And anyhow, he engraved a photograph, and then he signed it. It wasn't with auto pen. It was his original signature.
Did you see him sign it?
Oh, no, sir, I didn't. But you can tell. Now I have letters. I have letters that he corresponds with me, which I determine, I believe they are auto pen, but they seem to be, they respond to everything I write to him. And then I also have letters from the State Department that he's referred information that I've requested for assistance on a a liaison matter for some person from Korea.
Okay, caller, let's get a response.
Joe, I think that's probably more you in terms of photographs.
Caller, what is it you want to know? The value?
I'm sorry, I disconnected the caller, but yeah, I think that's a general idea.
If indeed the picture contains a genuine autograph, and the chances of that, unless you have a real personal relationship with the president, the chances that's remote, you're probably dealing with a value of somewhere around $100.
Are there any presidential signatures that are particularly valuable? If you had one on a letter or a book or anything else?
Lincoln, Washington, Kennedy, in particular. Kennedy signed very few things himself.
William Henry Harrison as
William
president.
Henry Harrison as president, yes, because he was only president for 41 days.
How do you know a Kennedy signature is the real thing?
That is one of the most difficult things in the world, because there are 7 different Kennedy auto pen signatures, and then beyond that they take a piece of paper and they turn it slightly so they get a slightly different signature out of the 7. So there's, I think, George Hamilton has a book in which there's at least 41 different auto pen signatures. He signed almost nothing. No, I shouldn't say it, very few things, and his signature doesn't look as good as any of the auto pens.
You need an autograph expert.
Definitely an autograph expert.
George, why don't we show this?
Sure. I was going to ask you, I know both of you have brought in things that you'd like to show us.
Show the front here.
All right. There we go.
That is the creche that was displayed in the White House in 1963. Then we open it up.
All right. Let's do that.
And it says...
Oops. Excuse me.
And there's Season's greetings with best wishes from John F. Kennedy. That's actually what his signature sort of looks like, and Jacqueline Kennedy. This was the Christmas card that was to be sent out in 1963 by the president, only he was assassinated, of course, and these small cards were never officially sent out. Now, if you were to look at that, you'd think that those are actually autographed signatures. They are not. They're copies of the signatures that were in the plate that made the card. This is a relatively rare card. Retail value on this would be somewhere around between $600 to $750. And it's part of a whole big collecting area of presidential Christmas cards. There was a wonderful new book that was written on this called Season's Greetings from the White House by Mary Evans Seeley. And it gives the entire history of Christmas cards sent out by the president, starting with Calvin Coolidge, all the way on up.
You know, I get a card every year because every member of the press gets a card every year from the White House, so I should hold on to those.
Yes, definitely you should. No question.
Our next call from Arlington, Virginia. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for C-SPAN. Gentlemen, I have a first edition book of Between Hope and History by President Clinton, and it was signed by him, and I know it's his signature because he signed it in front of me. And
That's a good start.
And I also have an autograph from President Clinton when he was Governor Clinton of Arkansas, and I was just wondering about the future value and rarity of this. Thanks.
Thank you.
He has signed more things both on the campaign trail and at all of these fundraisings than most presidents of the modern era. I would think that right now the book is probably worth $200, $250. The other signatures that on anything, we've lost the client.
Caller, you still there? Nope, sorry.
Could be, it depends on what it's on. If it's on something interesting, a campaign brochure, something of that nature as governor, with a governorship brochure, it could be worth $150, $200. If it's just a signature on a piece of paper, probably at this point less. Although they should go up in value to some extent. I mean, you're not talking about modern things. One of the reasons that modern things aren't as valuable in most cases as earlier items is that people are now thinking of being collectible, whereas 50 years and 100 years ago, people just tossed these items out and didn't think of them as being collectible, so that there's a lot less of them than there will be of modern things where people, it's like baseball cards. What killed the whole baseball card thing was that suddenly everybody decides they can make a fortune on baseball cards, and so the baseball card producers produce more of them, and the market collapsed. You're getting the same sort of thing here, that there are more people who think of these as being collectible, so the modern things are not going to be as valuable as the previous.
All right, in just a second, I want you both to show me something else, because you brought in a lot of things that look very interesting. But in the meantime, Emerald Isle, North Carolina, our next call. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a piece of interesting memorabilia. It's an 8x10 sheet of paper with images of Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, Washington, and Hamilton. And when you fold it as directed, it produces an image of Wendell Willkie. So it's from 1940. I'm just curious to know if there's.
It's 8 by 10. Is it in color or just black and white?
It's black and white, and it's like an etching almost. It's sort of
engraving is what you're saying. It's a very neat steel engraving kind of thing.
Yes.
I've never seen it, and I think it sounds interesting. Joe's never seen it. He's sitting here shaking his head. I would say that that's an item that, because it's paper and the number of people collecting paper ephemera are less than the number of people collecting campaign items, hard items, campaign buttons, and that sort of thing we're going to show you today. I would say probably it's worth $40 to $50 to $60. I know that's disappointing, but for an item I've never seen before, but it's just, as a piece of paper, it's not going to be worth an awful lot.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
Maybe there's a big show coming up somewhere near Emerald Isle, North Carolina, that this caller could
We
go
just
to.
had a show in Greensboro, North Carolina, March 3rd, yes.
Okay.
Charlie Hurtline's show down in North Carolina.
Do shows happen in the same location usually once a year? Is that what happens?
Many of them happen once a year. Anybody in the Northeast, there's going to be a show in North Haven, Connecticut, the first weekend in April, which is a major show. There's a major show the end of August. I think it's the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, something like that. It's on our website. In Hagerstown, Maryland, that's one of the two major shows of the year. We have another major show in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, the first weekend after the election in each year. That's also a large show. We have a show in Columbus, Ohio in October that's very big. We have shows all over the country.
Okay. Joe Levine, you're pushing something in my direction.
Yeah.
This looks like you want to show me here. Let's turn this over and put it on. Let's put it right here.
Now, if our viewers want to see something that's worth more than $40, here's an example. This is the official inauguration medal struck to honor President Theodore Roosevelt. Now, the tradition of issuing medals, official medals, to honor the inauguration of a president began in 1889. And it has continued to this day. And I've been honored to be on the Presidential Inaugural Medals Committee since 1981. And to this day, we still issue a gold inauguration medal, which is presented to the president, and then replicas in bronze, which are today, which are sold to the public. Back in Theodore Roosevelt's day, these medals were given to members of the inauguration committee. This was a special medal that was made for the executive committee of the official inaugural committee. Only 125 of them were struck. The design was by the famous American sculptor Augustus St. Gaudens, and if you want to turn it over on the back, those numismatists among you will recognize that eagle as the same eagle that appears on St. Gaudens' $10 gold piece. The actual execution of the work was done by Adolf A. Weinman. This is a very valuable item, and the last one I sold I got $8,500 for.
Now,
And that's a bronze medal, not a gold, not a silver, a
you
bronze
want to say
medal.
something about the proliferation of U.S. Mint medals, though, because people are going to see something with TR's face on it and think it's valuable.
All right. Most of the medals our callers are going to have with the effigy of the president on the front and the inauguration date on the back will come from a series of presidential medals issued by the U.S. Mint. These medals were struck beginning at the time the president went into office and are struck continually almost up to the present day. These medals do not have the cachet of the official inaugural medals, which are struck only for a limited period of time.
Our next call for our guest comes from Huntington, New York. Good morning.
Good morning. I was at the Huntington Townhouse March 16th, and we had a few people that showed up. Not too many, but there were a couple of Hillary buttons given out, and there are not too many in circulation right now. Now, if she wins or loses, would they be worth anything, do you think?
Is it a dated button? Does it have a date on it?
It have a date on it?
Yes.
No.
So it isn't commemorating a specific event. It's a generic button for Hillary Clinton for the Senate.
Right, but there are not too many around in the state.
There will be. Give it time.
So The answer is no.
The answer is probably not. Even if she is elected 3 or 4 times, it probably will not be worth a lot.
Sorry about that, caller. Our next call for our guest comes from Kingwood, Texas. Good morning.
Yes, I have the original Life magazine that was put out after the Kennedy assassination, and also a hardcover book that my mother ordered with the assassination, all the pictures of JFK Jr. and everything that, the car and everything that was there. I also have a Perot banner to be applied to your car. It's never been applied. And then I have an 1897 Indian head penny.
Okay, let's get a sense of.
I don't have any comment on the Indian head penny.
About 50 cents in average condition.
In average condition. And the other 3 items together, if you can find somebody who can buy them, because the trick is to find somebody who will buy them, would be maybe $20 for all 3 of them.
Okay, caller, thank you. How hard is it to find people? I guess the best way is to either go to a show, and you probably don't want to hear me say this, but eBay as well.
Yes,
you brought it up, right?
Oh, nothing wrong with eBay.
Nothing wrong with eBay. It's a.
Has this cut into your attendance at your shows?
I don't think it has at all, because I think what it has done is get more people interested. And since a lot of our members put things on eBay, but say, "Have you joined the APIC?" It's also bringing new members in, bringing people who know. You get everybody out there who buys a button off of eBay is a collector of some sort, and hopefully those people will become members of APIC.
eBay is a boon to every hobby, because it brings people together who didn't know each other and didn't know that there were people who were as avidly interested in what they're collecting, whatever it is. eBay's a very positive force for the hobby business.
Our next call, London, Derry, New Hampshire. Good morning.
Morning. We have a letter signed by Mr. Eisenhower when he was running for president. It happened to come to us through a member of the family. We were wondering what it might have value.
What type of letter is it?
It is a typewritten letter.
No, I mean, what is it? It's just thanking them for having appeared somewhere or doing something?
It's thanking him for helping him with his campaign.
Was he personally directly involved on a leadership level with the campaign?
Yes, he was.
Then it might be a valid signature. And the reason I say it is that every time you have a campaign in a state, 1,000 letters like that go out, and 998 of them are signed by a secretary with his signature, and those people are just very thrilled to have gotten it. But if you think about the fact that he would have had to sign 1,000 times, and he was very busy running in another state at that point, it's very difficult to show that that's a real signature. If you go to the library and find pictures of documents that he did sign, State Department documents, etc., and it is real, and you're sure it's real, it's probably worth $100.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, caller. We're getting here a
demonstration.
Joe Levine, I'm going to let you do this, so I don't. Do you have a penny?
Well,
what are we looking at here? And it may be very difficult to show our viewers this, but this is a bank, and it is in the person of
Boss Tweed.
Boss Tweed. This is called the Tammany Bank.
I think it says on the side, it says Tammany Bank.
Okay.
And this is your quintessential Tammany politician, and who's presumed to be corrupt. And if you can turn it back.
I don't know if our viewers will be able to see that, but
if we put
what
it here,
happens
can you come in on it and give me a...
We'll put it right in front of Mr. Fratkin here.
Okay. If you put the coin in, are you ready? Put the coin in. He takes the coin, he nods his head, says thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Puts it in his pocket.
And this is worth?
The Tammany banks vary in value depending upon how original they are, meaning how much of the original paint still is on the piece.
This is a very good piece.
This is a pretty decent piece, and I would say a value in that somewhere around $500–600.
Yes.
Piece that doesn't have as much of the original paint, $200–300.
Joe Levine is president of the Presidential Coin and Antique Company in Alexandria, Virginia. How did you get into this line?
Oh, my. Everybody starts as a collector. I started as somebody who was very interested in politics and things political. I was active as a college student in the Students for Kennedy movement. I came down here to Washington on the Washington semester program. I then stayed in Washington to go to law school. And then I got obsessed with collecting. And I didn't quite junk all my education, but I left some of it behind, and I went into business. And one of the things they taught me in business school is that you should differentiate your product. And I quickly saw in the Washington area, surprisingly enough, that there was almost nobody dealing in political items. And this was something that I was interested in, so I naturally turned to it and developed a business, and 30 years later, I'm on C-SPAN.
And we have a caller for you. Huntington, New York. Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hi. First, I just want to make a comment that I appreciate the fact that you're promoting history. Even though it's only collection, it's just very good that you preserve these items in general.
Thank you.
I had two items. One was just a Kennedy Johnson blue and white button from the 1960, and I was just wondering about the value of that. And the second one is a Kennedy for Senator poster with his picture on it, not from 1964, not for president in 1968. And I'm just wondering about the value of that.
The Robert Kennedy poster could be worth $40, $50, $60. There are people who are specifically Robert Kennedy collectors. We have a number of, if I may jog off it for just a second, we have a number of specialty chapters. It's a very large active Kennedy chapter, Theodore Roosevelt chapter, Democratic Candidates chapter, Franklin Roosevelt chapter, Landon chapter, so that if you become a member of APIC, not only do you become a member of the organization, but you'll join a chapter, you'll get a newsletter from the chapter. It happens the Kennedys are probably the most active chapter we've got. The button, it's just blue and white button that says Kennedy on it, is $1, $1.50.
Okay, thanks, caller. Robert Fracton, you just showed me something here. We went from a $750 Christmas card to an $8,500 medal. Are we rising up the scale of?
No, actually, we're not rising up the scale.
This looks much older and much more valuable.
Well, age and value, George. We've tried to get you.
I'm learning.
Okay. No, this is a piece from approximately the time of George Washington's presidency. You have to remember that George Washington was a person whose image was not known to a lot of people. We didn't have television, we didn't have movies, we didn't have newspapers that showed pictures, didn't have photography. And so items like this were used as a way of iconizing the image of the person who otherwise people wouldn't know what they looked like. A piece like this is probably in the neighborhood of $7,500.
Huh. That's still.
Tell me where you bought it, Bob.
I will not. No, I bought it in London last week, actually.
Oh,
really? Interestingly, my friend bought a Lincoln piece last week in London. I've bought a Washington piece in London a year ago for $1.80, 1 pound, $1.70, which Mr. Levine graciously auctioned in one of his mail and floor auctions, and brought over $1,000. So this is the whole concept, as we were talking about with the 50-cent button and the $20,000 button. This is America's last great treasure hunt. This stuff is in attics. It's in sewing boxes. It's exciting.
Joe Levine, how many people do you get coming into where you are with stuff to show to you, or do you do that kind of thing?
Oh yeah. I'm a little bit off the beaten track. I'm actually in the Annandale area. I get, of course, the Washington area is filled with presidential items, and we specialize in White House gift items, cufflinks, tie bars, and so forth. And so we tend to get a lot of the stuff that is here, that's generated here in Washington. But I'm reasonably well known nationally, so I get a lot of stuff that's sent to me in the mail or referred to me by people from museums and so forth.
Interestingly enough, George, you probably have stuff in your sock drawer that's valuable, because if you've been in your game for any number of years, you've been on presidential trips, or you've been to campaign functions, and the press badges, the official press badges for presidential trips and for presidential events that are dated, have your picture on them, etc., are worth a lot of money now.
Seriously?
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
Yes.
All
there are
reporters
items
out there listening or watching.
Yeah, any reporters out there, get hold of us, because older items, and if your father was a reporter, we've had some pieces show up from the 1930s and 40s and 50s where people have come to us and said their father, their grandfather was at the White House as a reporter, and they have all this stuff. And it's surprising the value of some of these items.
About that. Our next call from Pikeville, Kentucky. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, folks. In my family, there's a coin. It has Rutherford B. Hayes on one side and a paragraph on the other side. It's red in appearance and looks to be maybe bronze or perhaps brass.
Is it about the size of a quarter?
I think so.
Okay. That's a piece, you'll be sad to learn, that is from a set of presidential tokens that started in about 1933. Most of these sets were struck by the Osborne Register Company of Cincinnati, Ohio. They continued making coins from this set all the way through the early 80s. So the approximate retail value of your item is about 50 cents.
Oh, dear. Sorry, caller.
It's the size of a quarter. That's at least an improvement.
That's true. There you are.
Toms River, New Jersey. Good morning.
Yes, hi. I have an actual black and white snapshot of when the Lincoln Tunnel was first being built with all the old cars and actually while the tunnel was in progress of being built. Could you help me with anything like that?
Well, I agree with you that the word Lincoln is part of what we do here, but tunnels are not our game. You'd have to, I don't even know where you'd go with something like that. I think the best thing you could do with something like that would be probably to donate it to the Museum of the City of New York and take a tax write-off. I don't know what they value at, but to them it would be more valuable than probably to any individual.
Thank you, caller. Our next call from Princeton, New Jersey. Good morning.
Good morning. Just let me lower this. I have a pin, which is about 3/4 of an inch long, which is the sole of a foot with a hole in the sole, representing Adlai Stevenson.
This is a silver pin. This is not a.
Yes.
This is not a button. Okay.
Right. Okay. Silver pin.
Sterling.
Yes, I believe so. It's not shined at the moment, but I believe it
should
was
be
silver.
sterling. It's worth usually around $15. There were a lot of them made. Once again, it's a matter of supply and demand.
Okay, caller. Our next call from Jacksonville, Florida. Good morning.
Yes, hi. We have a family member that worked for the Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, and also Roosevelt years and received staff gifts that were, in the Eisenhower years, were copies of paintings that President Eisenhower did, and all these items are signed and framed, and this is how they were given to the staff members. And I guess there's probably about 8 different pieces.
This is Mr. Levine's specialty.
Yeah. These are considered the Christmas gift prints. The signatures on the card, again, are not actual autographs. They appear on all of the cards. They're in the plate. Again, if you get Mary Evans Seeley's book on White House Christmas cards, these are all pictured, and you'll notice that the signature on your piece will be exactly in the same place as the signature on the picture in Mrs. Seeley's book. Excuse me. The value of your cards for the Eisenhower cards, depending upon which one, 300, and depending upon condition, retail from $350 to $650. For the Kennedy cards, depending upon which one and which condition, the large gift prints have a value of between $1,000 and $1,500, and your Truman cards from $800 to $1,500.
Thank you, caller. Bob Fracken.
Christmas cards, same thing.
Yeah.
Gotta keep them.
Just placed something in front of me, and it looks very old, but having made a mistake earlier, I'm going to conclude that these are not worth very much money at all.
No,
but tell us what they
that's
are.
good.
It's all relative.
You're becoming cautious. These are ferrotypes, which is the first photographic images that appeared on campaign items, and they are literally emulsions, exposed emulsions on tin. This is John Bell, who ran for president against Abraham Lincoln in a 4-way race in 1860. And this is another item. There's another ferrotype. Who we got there? This is Lincoln. So we put that right up on top of here.
Right.
Next, this is 2 of them. There's 4 of them. There's one for Breckinridge, and there's one for Douglas also. These are worth, well, the Lincoln is worth, what, $750?
On a good day.
On a good day. The Bell is worth about $300 to $400 because there are less people collecting Bell. The Lincoln people there are so many people out there collecting just Lincoln, who are the Lincolnophiles, that anything Lincoln goes for more than the people around him with the same exact kind of item because there's such a higher demand. And this is the piece, The Union Must and Shall Be Preserved, which is part of the John Bell campaign. It's an unusual ferrotype because it's one of the few that doesn't picture the candidate.
Huh.
And that's probably worth about $300 to $400 by itself. Yeah.
I was right. I'm learning something.
Yeah.
We're trying to get a couple more calls in for you. Our next call comes from Quincy, Illinois. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a pen that is from 1908, and it is the 50th anniversary of the reenactment, or a reenactment rather, of the Lincoln-Douglas debate held here in Quincy, Illinois. And it's a pin back button, has a picture of Lincoln and Douglas, very small red, white, and blue ribbon about, maybe 4 millimeters wide and an inch long, trailing from it. Pin size is about the size of a dime, maybe just a little bit less.
It's a small version. They did those, and they did a lot of reenactments at the same time. There's a series of things with Lincoln and Douglas on them. Usually they're worth between $35 and $65, unless you have one of the larger ones with color. There's one that's 1 3/4 inches that has a lot of color on it. That's worth $300, $400, but those are worth $35, $45.
Okay, caller, thank you very much. Our last call for our guests from Great Neck, New York. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a photograph of a dinner with members of the Lost Battalion, and also I have a Purple Heart. Wonder if they have any value.
We are not military people, so you'd have to wait until George has somebody on who wants to discuss military medals. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Can we just look at one more thing you brought with you, Bob Fratkin? This has caught my attention all the way through the show, and it's a bumper, kind of a plate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a license plate for a car.
License plate for Truman and Barkley, and win with Truman and Barkley.
$450,
$450, really? Wow.
There's a Dewey Warren that looks exactly the same, except obviously with different pictures, different names, which is only worth $250 to $300 because Truman is hot. Kennedy's hot. Truman is hot. Theodore Roosevelt is hot. Landon, to some extent, is hot. These are people gravitate towards certain candidates as representing something, I guess, within them, and those candidates tend to be hotter than the candidates around them. Parker items, which are rarer than TR items for the same campaign, go for less because TR is more popular.
Joe Levine, let me give you the last word. What is the most recent kind of a button or a bumper sticker or anything from campaigns over the last, 10, 20 years that might be particularly valuable?
I'm going to shoot that to Bob because, frankly, I don't pay much attention to the modern
in
stuff.
general, let me give you viewers a general idea. Anything that has a date on it, so that it was used for one particular function, or it has the name of a local candidate on it, so it's only used in a local area. So it says Clinton, Gore, Jones from one little congressional district, are going to tend to be more valuable because they are going to tend to be in much smaller quantity than the general items that just say Clinton, Gore, or Bush, somebody items would be.
Bob Fratkin, Joe Levine, thanks very much for coming in. This was fascinating. And just a couple of minutes, we'll be back talking about the Teacher Next Door program with William Apgar of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We'll be right back. Thanks.